Hi and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today we're going to talk about Darshan. Darshan is the point where one has a vision of the divine, and this could be something that is an ongoing process, but let's just get into it. How does this make a difference, and how does it affect our lives? So let's start with what is the concept of Darshan. Darshan is being able to see. But we see everything. We see the world. We think we see everything, actually. But what we see is a very limited spectrum of the world. Even things like infrared rays, ultraviolet rays, we do not see them. As well as many other things, radio waves, television waves, we don't see them. There is so much around us, cellular, all this stuff, right? And we don't see it, but it's there. And then there are things that we feel and experience, like if somebody pulls up next to you or stands next to you, drives up next to you, and suddenly you know they're looking at you and you turn and somehow you knew, right? So although you see, there's much information that is around you that you do not see. Darshan is the ability to be able to see the divine, firstly, in everything. It begins there. Being able to feel that presence, being able to see and experience that energy that is in nature and that is all around us, and to experience the divinity within it. I mean, we see the world with our material eyes and we see it for what it is, but we do not really see. We see whatever our mind interprets. Actually, we do not see the world, I would go so far as to say. We see what we think we see, right? Our thinking alters our reality, or as someone said, perception is reality. Do we really see the world as it is? Probably not. The entire world is made of energy. Scientists with their electron microscopes have looked at it very deeply at its core, and they've said that whatever we're seeing is actually atoms and protons moving in space, and other particles as well, quarks and so on and so forth, and they are creating the sense of illusion of the world that we see, similar to what you see happening in a movie. When you watch the movie, it's on a screen or a TV screen or the theater screen, and the rays of light are forming, but they're actually somewhere in the projector, and so is the film strip that is there, or digital data that is there. And it's all forming on this screen that you're watching. The screen of the world leads us to believe that it is real, and it feels real. It sounds real. It in every way appears so realistic. But is it? It's worth asking. Darshan is about being able to see past what you call reality. It's being able to see through the veil of what the material eyes see. Being able to see and experience the divine, that energy that lies in everything. How do you do that? You do that by quieting your mind. When your mind is quiet and your mind is no longer interpreting the world as good or bad or nice or ugly or this or that, then you're able to see things as they are. And when you see things as they are, you're also able to feel them. And then suddenly a heightened sense of awareness comes about. And it is through that awareness that we now develop a different way of seeing the world or experiencing it. It's actually beyond the senses and has very little to do with the senses. You're actually seeing without seeing. Now, the beginning is with nature, and from there you might move on to other objects around you. You might even bring that to the things of the world and develop a non-dual way of thinking, going beyond the likes and dislikes of the mind, going beyond its preferences, and being able to see beyond even what is seen with your physical eyes. It's not hard to do. It's challenging. It's something we can all do. Maybe sometimes you need to blur your eyes a little bit. Maybe sometimes you need to defocus them a little. And then comes the part where, as you've practiced that, you can begin to see and experience the divine in others. That's the hardest one. You might be able to do it with an animal first. That would be easier. But in time, if you practice and if you realize and if you hold the intention that there is a divinity in each person, let me see it somehow. Let me feel that presence. Let me go past their words, past their actions, past their look, past all the stuff there, and let me feel that presence of the divinity that lies within them. Again, it seems hard, it seems difficult, but it is possible with practice. You really have to awaken a whole other side of yourself, but it is very real and very beautiful. And in the beauty of that, you begin to find that each person is no different than you are. And you develop a deep level of what some might call compassion, but I don't really think of it as compassion. I just think of it as you begin to see them with a whole different perception. And compassion is just a normal, natural acceptance of this crazy world that we live in. And then comes the third stage, the stage that many great mystics have talked about, the stage in which they're able to see the divine or God standing in front of them, smiling, with beautiful eyes, with beautiful countenance, adorable, delightful, beautiful, sensual, in every way charming, in every way exquisite. So today we're going to hear about someone who had that darshan. His name is Brahma. And we'll talk about what he saw, what that felt like for him. And the aim of the program would be to inspire you to cultivate that kind of spiritual practice so that you may gradually begin to experience this divine presence everywhere, within yourself and all around you. So let's get started with the Bhagavatam. Today we're reading from Canto 2, chapter 8. And it looks like we've lost some of our screen here, so we'll take a little pause. If you will excuse me for a moment, and we'll be right there with you in all of some little initial glitches that we had. We lost this, so we're going to get it back again. And there it is. All right, good. Okay. Yes, it would have been a tragedy not to be able to show you some of the wonderful pictures I've been able to collect to show you, and I'm glad that we got this sorted out. So thank you for your patience. All right. So our venue in which the Bhagavatam is being spoken is here. This is a gathering of very highly evolved beings, sages, saints, incredible people who have gathered from all across the planet. And on the left is Parikshit kneeling, as you see him. He's a great king who has given up the entire world. And to the right of him, sitting on that throne-like thing, is Shukadev. Shukadev was probably considered the wisest person of his time, an incredibly deeply self-realized being who was the son of Vyas, and Vyas was the one who had compiled all of the Vedas. The Vedas, for those of you who might be new, are the ancient texts from India which are about the spiritual self-realization and God realization. So they're having this conversation where Parikshit knows that he is to die in 7 days, and Parikshit's been asking all kinds of questions. Now at this point, Parikshit comes up with a few more questions from Shukadev, and he says, Dear Master, dear Shukadev, narrations about Krishna who possesses wonderful potencies are auspicious for all living beings in all planets. Please continue narrating the Bhagavatam so that I may fix my mind on him and become completely freed from material qualities before I leave this body. As I mentioned, Parikshit knew that he's going to die. And because he knew that he's going to die, he wanted to immerse himself in an activity that would prepare him for death. Have you ever thought about what it might be like to prepare for death? Most of us don't even want to think about it. Most of us don't want to talk about it. And yet here is someone who, the moment he knew that he's going to die, and He had 7 days notice, but we all have noticed that one day it will happen. He decided that he was going to drop everything, all his kingdom, his palace, all the luxuries and comforts that he had, everything, right? He was the king of practically most of the world. He decided to just walk away from it all and devote himself to preparing for death. I wonder how many of us could do that, right? It wouldn't be easy. Most of us till the very last minute are holding on to friends, to family, to our possessions, to our things, and it's very hard to walk away from it all. But this man had way more than most of us will ever have, way more than the richest people today have, and didn't take him but a moment to walk away from it. Now, what he's wanting to do, he's wanting to hear about God. He's wanting to hear about Krishna, who has such wonderful qualities. And he says, by hearing about these qualities, these activities, these pastimes, his nature, I will become freed from all material contamination, from all the conditioning of the world, from all the, things that we hold so dear. Parikshit continues saying, those who hear Bhagavatam regularly and take its instructions seriously will have God manifest in their hearts within a very short time. That's a pretty wild statement to hear. Those who hear Bhagavatam, this text that we are reading from, regularly, and many of you are here who have been very regular in this, and I applaud you for that. Those who hear Bhagavatam regularly and take its instructions seriously will have God manifest in their hearts within a very short time. Why? What's the connection between the earlier sentence and this one? There's actually a very powerful connection. As the mind becomes clear from the material qualities, as the influence of the world no longer controls you, because we are in fact controlled. We are controlled by our mind, we are controlled by the influence of the world, we're controlled by the politics, by the economics, we're controlled by the things that people say. Everything affects us and impacts us. But what the Bhagavatam does is it frees you from the impact of the world, because it creates a buffer. It creates a deep inner resonance, a waking up of the soul, an energy that then pushes away at the world. You may try to push away the world by going to a forest or some kind of remote place. You may try to push away the world by turning off your TV, and you may think that that's done it. But no, it hasn't. You've still got your mind there, and you've still got your memories, and you've still got your conditioning, and you've still got everything that you saw and heard and that happened to you through your entire lifetime. That's still here. But once that is cleansed and cleared, then the cup is empty. And into that empty cup comes the divine, the presence of God. We need to be like that, a blank canvas. Then we can hear him, then we can feel him, then we can feel his presence within us and all around us. So then he says that is when God will manifest in your heart within a very short time. The words of the Bhagavatam, Parikshit says, enter the heart and cleanse the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. And lust means desire. Desire is something we all have. And when our desires are thwarted, there is anger, right? First, there is a hankering for something, and then when that thing doesn't happen or it doesn't go the way we want, there is anger. It's very natural. It's the way the mind works. It's not something's wrong with us. It's just how things work in here. So realizing that is very, very important. Parikshit continues. He says, a devotee whose heart has been cleansed never relinquishes Krishna's feet, for they fully satisfy him, as a traveler is satisfied at home after a troubled journey. I like that. When you go for a holiday, and let's say you've had a hard time. I remember the time I went to Europe and my cell phone got stolen. It was hard to live without a cell phone in today's time. Couldn't get an Uber, couldn't get any of the things done, didn't know the schedules of my flights, and it's tough. We've gotten so used to this thing. But when we come back from a troubled journey and we come home, there's this wonderful feeling, finally I can put my feet up and I can relax. The journey's over. It's been adventurous, it's been exciting, it's been full of ups and downs. but now I can rest. And so that's the feeling that a person has whose heart has been cleansed. Suddenly the journey of this life after life after life that we've been spending on this earth, in this material world, has suddenly ended. And then that moment, you know, the very thing that ended it is this wonderful relish that you gained for Krishna's feet, for Krishna's glory, for hearing about him, for loving him. You've gained something so much more superior than the world that it was easy to let go of the world. People want to say, oh, let's get detached. Somebody should get detached, should leave the world. They want to become a monk or a nun or a priest. That's very hard to do because the world is right in our head. We must replace it with something even more powerful. And that something more powerful is the energy of God, is the presence of something that is so all-powerful and all-consuming and all-satisfying to the heart and to the soul. You know, the thing that satisfies the soul is never matter. The soul is not interested in matter. But tell it something about God. Tell it something about the soul. When you hear something of that, there's a waking up that occurs. The soul wakes up and it wants to know more. Tell me more. What is it? What is this thing? There's this deep curiosity. Jigyasa is the word that is used in Sanskrit. Jigyasa, a curiosity, a desire to know more. A thirst that I've been starving for life after life, wanting to know about this. And finally it's here. I want to know more. Tell me, tell me, tell me. This is the kind of enthusiasm with which Parikshit is asking his questions. And then he continues, please tell me more about the Supreme Being who lives in every heart, who is the master of all energies, but is untouched by the energy of the world. Please tell me about the opulences of great mystics and what is their ultimate realization. It's an interesting term he uses, the opulences of great mystics. Now, a mystic is someone who is really not interested in anything of the world, so what opulence could he have? Such a person typically would have no mansions, would not have any great and wonderful bank account, nor a great big car, nor some incredible investments. Such a person's greatest asset, their greatest treasure, is God. They have found the greatest treasure of all. And when they found that, nothing else appeals. So he says, what is their ultimate realization? What is it that the mystic has found? What is the opulence that the mystic has? I want to know. How does the perfect mystic become detached, not only from the physical world, from the subtle astral body, the subtle body, which is the mind, the intellect, and the ego? How do you become free from that as well? And then, of course, while we're at this, Parikshit wants to know even more. He says, how are living beings generated? How are they maintained and how are they annihilated? What are the advantages and disadvantages of serving God? You can see this person is full of questions, right? I was like that too. I had tons of questions. And people thought I'm crazy to be asking all kinds of things like that. I want to encourage each of you. I'm sure you have questions. I'm sure you think about things. You wonder about things. And I don't want you to take any of this blindly. I want you to be able to question. So in the comments, in the chat, wherever you are, please write down your questions and I will be glad to answer every single one of them. I can't tell you how satisfying it is to have your questions there and to hear from you. So please do not hesitate. So Parikshit continues. He says, "O great sage, kindly satisfy my inquisitiveness and tell me all about all that I have inquired and not inquired from you." He says, even the things I haven't inquired from you, anything else you think about, please tell me about that as well. I am a soul surrendered unto you. Please impart full knowledge to me. This is something that Arjun says to Krishna as well in the battlefield of Kurukshetra in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, Krishna, I am confused. I do not know what to do. I have no idea. I'm struggling. I am in a total mess. Please guide me. I am a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So the same thing is being said by King Parikshit now to Shukadev. See, this is the humility of a bygone era, an era in which even a great king Imagine one of the greatest rulers of the United States or some other big country kneeling down before a wise person and asking them questions like this. Imagine Trump doing that, or imagine Biden doing that, or imagine any of the others that came before them doing that. Very often they're so full of their own arrogance and their own pride. They're so full of their own position as a great leader. It's very hard for them to do that. But the Vedic culture trained people in doing that from a very young age. Parikshit continues, because of my drinking the nectar of the message of the infallible Supreme Being, which is flowing from the ocean of your speeches, I do not feel any sort of exhaustion due to fasting. Parikshit has been fasting. He's going to fast the entire 7 days. He wants to devote himself to hearing about God every moment of those 7 days. He doesn't want to sleep. He doesn't want to rest. He doesn't want to be able to eat. He doesn't want to do anything except hear this nectarian message from the great sage Shukadev. So now we come to the next chapter, and that is Canto 2, chapter 9. And let's see what Shukadev said. Shukadev says, the relationship of the soul and the body is like that of a dreamer seeing his own body working. It's an interesting statement. What is he saying here? The relationship of the soul and the body is like that of a dreamer seeing his own body working. Have you ever had that when you're dreaming and you're actually watching yourself over there? Some people have these kind of dreams where they actually feel themselves going out of their body and watching themselves. The soul, similarly, is having this dream that you call life. The soul is having this dream. And it's watching you in its dream, becoming so attached to everything, becoming so caught up with everything, becoming so stressed by everything. And it's wondering, what's going on? Why are you like this? What's going on with you? Shukdev continues, the soul encaged by the body and mind appears in so many forms. Right? The soul is actually encaged by this body and mind. It's in here, it's stuck in here. And it goes into so many forms. So even in this life, we've had so many forms. You've been a baby at some time, then you were a teenager, then you became 20 years old and 30 and 40 and 50, and you kept growing older and older. So many forms even in this life, so many bodies even in this life. And then you've had so many lifetimes before even this one. How many? I don't know. Maybe millions of lifetimes, maybe millions of years that you've been here. The soul, encaged by the body and mind, appears in so many forms offered by the external energy of God. All these forms are offered to you by the external energy of God. What form would you like? Would you like to eat, drink, and be merry? What's the best form for that? Oh, maybe the body of a pig might be more suitable for that. Or maybe the body of some other creature that likes to eat, drink, and be merry. Right? If you want to know about God, the best body for that is the human body. But we need to take advantage of this human body, this form that we've got, because this is the form that is able to inquire, that is able to think, that is able to understand, and is able to practice the things that will bring us closer to God. But if all we want is material things, and there's plenty of bodies available in different species for that, right? And in different conditions of life, even human life. Shukdev continues, under the influence of the illusory energy of God, Maya. So we need to understand this. There is something called Maya. Maya is the illusory energy of God. God has internal energy, which is a spiritual energy, spirit, as some would say. Then there is the external energy, which is this world. Then there is this illusory energy, which is called Maya. Now there's many other energies. I'm just naming 3 of the most important ones that are relevant to us. But Maya is what creates the illusion. This energy creates the illusion that we live in. So he says here, under the influence of the illusory energy of God, Maya, The living entity attempts to enjoy the modes of material nature, misconstruing the world in terms of I and mine. Ooh. Let's take a look at that. The living entity attempts to enjoy this world. Attempts to enjoy, right? The key word being attempts. So we are all trying to enjoy. We want to have a good time. We want to party. We want to go on a holiday. We want to go on a vacation. We want to go to a nice restaurant. We want to enjoy. We want to enjoy the pleasures of the things of the world, the taste, the smells, the colors, the sights. We want to enjoy sex. We want to enjoy money. We want to enjoy everything, right? And we're attempting, and we're thinking we get something, but most of the time what we're getting is a little relief from our needs. So let's say you're hungry and you eat food, you've got a relief from hunger. Let's say you're feeling sleepy or tired, and then you lie down, you get a relief from your tiredness by sleep. Let's say you're feeling a little down and drained or tired, and you start having some alcohol, and now you feel a little buzzed up. But it's only temporary. It's an attempt to enjoy, but it's not real enjoyment, because real enjoyment, according to the Vedas, is lasting enjoyment, not something that goes up and down, is there sometimes, not there sometimes. You got to pop a pill, you got to take a drug, you got to ingest some alcohol, you got to eat some food. No, something that is there naturally, spontaneously, always. You don't have to buy it, you don't have to acquire it, you don't have to work hard for it. It's right here. The pleasure you're looking for is right here. But anything that requires an effort to get it, that's usually of the world. So the living entity attempts to enjoy the modes of nature, misconstruing the world in terms of I and mine. And that's really at the heart of all our suffering. When somebody says something bad to you, doesn't like you, says something mean, says something nasty, something unpleasant, your ego gets hurt, and I am bothered. Right? If there's anything that doesn't go the way I want, then I'm bothered. If something happens to mine, something that is mine, my possession, my partner, my child, my parent, then I'm very upset. I and mine are the basic fundamental blocks of Maya, of illusion. This illusion that something is mine. In fact, nothing is mine. This ego, which I think is me, was a construct made up from the time I was born. The mind went about collecting data because it didn't know who am I. So it went on collecting data from the world, and whatever people said, when people said you're smart, you're stupid, you're ugly, you're beautiful, whatever they said, the mind latched on to that and said, oh, that's who I am. Okay, that's me. Now, if I think I'm smart and you tell me I'm stupid, well, I'm going to get really upset because you are actually messing with what's inside here. And if you tell it to me enough and I start to believe you, I might actually become that. But all of it is illusory. All of it was made up one way or the other. Either someone said it or whatever, I made it up. And the things that I call mine were not mine before. Even my parents were not mine before I came into this body. And when I leave this body, they will not be mine. My possessions will even not be mine. I will not take anything with me. So I and mine are basically constructs of illusion, of Maya. When you realize that, you suddenly say, okay, whoa. Because those are the things that cause you suffering. If they weren't there, if you didn't have that illusion, there wouldn't be suffering. Right? All suffering is here. Very little of it is actually physical. Some part of it is. Some part of it is connected with the body, but most of it is here. Shukadev continues, when the soul comes in contact with the energy of the Supreme Being, the living entity awakens to his constitutional glory. Constitutional glory here means your natural, innate, intrinsic glory. You are intrinsically, naturally, eternally glorious. So when the soul comes in contact with the energy of the Supreme Being, remember what I said? That it is only spirit that can awaken spirit. It is only the energy of the divine or God that awakens the soul. That's all it's interested in. So when the soul comes in contact with the energy of the Supreme Being, the living entity awakens to his constitutional glory and begins to enjoy a life of transcendence. What is that like? One then easily gives up the misconceptions of I and mine and experiences a life that is beyond the influence of time and the material energy, and becomes fully manifest as pure self. This is what it means. The awakening of the soul, self-realization, this is what it means. It means that we give up, not by some hard work and struggle, but by breaking the illusion. How do you break the illusion? You let in the light, you let in the reality, the divinity, the presence of God. How do you let that in? Stop being such a believer of your mind. You stop focusing on what this is telling you, and you start going inward and experiencing what this is telling you, what your heart, what your spirit is telling you, because its messages are profound and beautiful. So we'll go back to the earlier statement. Under the influence of the illusory energy of God, we get stuck. But when we experience, right, the presence of God, then the soul wakes up. And when it wakes up, these false conceptions, these misconceptions of I and mine drop off. And we then begin to experience a life that is beyond time and the material energy and becomes fully manifest as pure self. It's a gradual process. But I invite you to start experiencing it here and now. It's not far away. It's not difficult. It's not impossible. That's what your mind will tell you. Of course your mind's going to tell you that because it doesn't know how to do this stuff. It cannot do it. It will never be able to do it. That's why he says that it can only happen when we come in contact with the energy of the Supreme Being. How do you come in contact with the energy of the Supreme Being? By listening to things like the Bhagavatam, by chanting his name. Shravanam is listening. Kirtanam is chanting. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. It means remembering. How do you remember? When you do kirtan, when you chant, or when you read these words and you remember them, right? As you put them in, like whatever you put into your mind is what's going to come out of it. You put in junk, you'll get junk. You put in these wonderful words, you read them day after day. Every day you pick up the Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita and you read that, or you chant the names, or you listen to kirtan. And then that's what's going to start playing in your head. I find myself waking up in the middle of the night with the kirtan going on in my head. I got to be crazy or something, but that's how it works. Shravanam, listening. Kirtanam, speaking about chanting. Right? You can chant on beads, you can chant in a kirtan. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Then remembrance starts to happen. And then Pada Sevanam. Begin to find ways in which to serve God. It could be by serving others. It could be by serving a deity. It could be by going to a temple. Pada Sevanam, Archanam, worship, Vandanam. Say, Atma Nivedana means ultimately surrendering your entire being to the divine. And that's the process. Navada Bhakti, as Narad Muni calls it. So, to enter into the next phase of what we're going to talk about, and what Shukdev is going to talk about, I want to remind you of this one picture that we saw earlier. This is the picture of the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So we are going to be focusing today on Brahma and Vishnu. I'll throw you some more pictures. Here are pictures of Vishnu lying down, as yogis have seen him, as yogis have conceived of Vishnu. I haven't, so I cannot confirm or deny. I simply consider the possibilities. Vishnu lying down in meditation, in trance, and all of this world, this material creation happening as a dream of Vishnu. Here is Vishnu, and you will see there is Brahma emerging from his navel, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. This is a picture of Brahma. Today we're going to be focusing on him. And there's Brahma from on top as he's emerging from the lotus that is coming out of Vishnu, and we're going to read about his story right now in just a minute. And that's Brahma chanting various verses. So, all right. So Brahma was born from the lotus that emerged from the navel of Vishnu. When he was born, he wandered up and down the stem of the lotus but could not figure out where he was or what he was supposed to do. Now imagine this was a huge lotus. I don't know if it's real or symbolic. We'll just take it on face value because, sometimes people think, oh, this is just some stories and some myths. But by the way, these were written by incredibly wise people. They were spoken by the wisest people on the planet. Did they mean it metaphorically? Did they mean it literally? I'm just going to go with the literal interpretation. If you think it's metaphorical, I leave that up to you. Maybe it goes beyond our imagination, and maybe it means things other than we can understand. So maybe we should just keep an open mind, see what happens. So now while Brahma was on the lotus, which had emerged from the navel of Vishnu, he was wandering up and down the stem of the lotus, but couldn't figure out where he was, what was going on, what is he supposed to do. And suddenly in the sky, he hears the words ta, pa, ta, pa, tapa, tapa. People translate this word tapa, which actually is the root for tapasya. They translate it as penance, and I did some research into that, and this is actually, I believe it's a wrong translation. To translate tapasya as penance is misleading. The dictionary defines penance as this is a quote, an act of self-abasement, mortification, or devotion performed to show sorrow or repentance for sin. I don't think that's what we're talking about at all. Now, going into Sanskrit, the etymological root of tapas is, oh, by the way, that sounds like the Spanish tapas, doesn't it? Okay, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about tapa meaning, and we'll get to what it is. The real meaning in Sanskrit is deep meditation. Also, tapa means heat and also means energy. But deep meditation is sort of accepted by many as sort of the actual meaning. It indicates a process of purification by which you make yourself more seasoned and mature in your spirituality. A process of purification by which you make yourself more seasoned and mature in your spiritual practice. Tapasya includes control over three things: control over your body, control over your speech. So control of your body means control over your tongue, over your senses. Where do you let your senses go? Where do you let your tongue, what you eat and stuff like that? Where do you let your gaze go? Where do you let your hearing go? So control over your body, control over your speech, over what comes out of your mouth, and control over your mind and your thoughts, right? Why do we have control all this stuff? Not because we are control freaks, but because for the purpose of self-realization, leading to God realization. So why is it important to control all of this? Because the idea of all meditation is to learn to focus your mind upon the self and through the self to God. That is the intent. So to learn to focus it, we have to focus involves, by its very nature, the elimination of many other inputs and data that might be coming in. Let's say if I'm sitting at in a conversation with you, let's say we're at a restaurant and we're having a conversation. I don't want to keep my cell phone there and be looking at it every 2 minutes. That's not focus. That's not presence. That's not being with you, right? If I want to be with you, then I need to focus on you. Look into your eyes, listen to your words, engage with what you're telling me. That's focus. So to do that, I have to tune out what everybody else is saying in that restaurant, what everybody else is talking about, and focus in on just you. And that's how it is. Therefore, we control the body and our speech and our thoughts for the purpose of focusing the mind onto something higher and deeper and more satisfying. So, beginning with that, he heard the word ta and pa. Ta pa, ta pa. He knew this meant tapasya. He then sat down on the lotus and engaged in meditation for 1,000 years of the demigods, which is approximately 2 million earth years, and became known as the greatest of all ascetics. Now you might say to me, well, 2 million years, who the heck can sit for that long? Well, Brahma's life, 1 day of Brahma is equal to 4 billion of our years, 4.3 billion. Now you might say, well, how do you know that? Well, that's what the great sages said. How did they know that? They were capable of traveling to various planets, galaxies, solar systems, way across the end to the ends of the universe and into the ends of creation for that matter. We say, how is that possible? Well, we've heard about remote viewing, how people can sit in one place even now and can travel to and be in another place, in another country maybe even, and be able to see what is going on over there. Well, these yogis had developed the ability to not just go to another place on this earth, but they could go to another place anywhere in the universe or in the galaxy or in the solar system or anywhere else, right? They had that ability. And so therefore, they came to us with this level, this kind of clear mathematical equations that they present in the Vedas. Did they know? Did they know what they're talking about? I don't know. But I'm going to take it again on face value that maybe there's something to it. Maybe the time frame in other galaxies is different than the time frame in our galaxy. Is that a possibility? And in our solar system and in our Earth planet. It's possible that our time frame is different. The time frame that some insects live is only a day. For them, that day is 100 years, right? For a dog, it might be 10, 15, 20 years. That's their 100 years. And our 100 years is what it is. But in our lifetime, in comparison to someone on another planet, might be entirely different. So I'm just going to take it at face value that Brahma meditated for 2 million Earth years. Right? Let's consider the possibility. That was a lot of meditation. And in his meditation, he had darshan. He saw God. And at that point, he said these prayers. Ishvara Parama Krishna. He referred to Krishna as the Param Ishwar, the supreme controller, the supreme absolute. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha. He said, your Vigraha, your form, is Satchit Ananda. It is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Anadir Adir Govinda. Anadi means that which has no beginning. And Adir is the beginningless, Govinda, Krishna. Sarva Karanam Karanam. He is the cause of all causes. So the whole sentence reads like this. Krishna is known as Govinda. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. This is what Brahma was saying when he saw Krishna. Then he continued, Venum kvanantam aravinda dalaya taksham barahavatam asitam buddhasundarangam kandharpakoti kamaniya vishesha shobham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head bedecked with peacock feather, with a figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. He then continues, Angani yasya sakalendriya brittimanti pashyanti panti kalayanti chiranjaganti anand chinmaya sadujjvala vigrahasya govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of the transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs. In other words, each organ can do what all the other organs can do, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena santas sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti Yanshama sundaramachintya gunaswarupam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shyam Sundar, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of devotion tinged with the salve of love. So it's a very beautiful prayers that Brahma recited when he saw Krishna, when he had darshan of the divine. And then Krishna revealed to him his transcendental abode, Vaikuntha, that is free from the influence of the modes of material nature, from the influence of Maya and the influence of time. There he saw that the inhabitants have glowing sky bluish complexion. Their eyes resemble lotus flowers. All of them are youthful. Their bodily features are very attractive, and they have 4 hands. Some of them are effulgent like coral and diamonds in complexion. Their dress is of yellowish color, and they are nicely decorated with pearl necklaces and ornamental medallions, garlands, and earrings. The Vaikuntha planets are also surrounded by various glowing airplanes that belong to great devotees. The ladies are as beautiful as lightning because of their celestial complexions, and all these combined together appear like the sky decorated with both clouds and lightning. Among them is Vishnu, the Lord of the universe, along with Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, who is engaged in serving him. The sight of him is attractive and intoxicating. He has a smiling face and is dressed in yellow robes with earrings and a helmet and 4 hands. He is seated on a throne surrounded by his various energies and enjoying his own abode. So these are the visions of Brahma. And that's what Brahma saw at the time of his darshan. I think at this point I'll go a little further and all right. Seeing all this, Brahma was overwhelmed with joy within his heart. His eyes filled with tears of love. He bowed down before his beloved Lord. Vishnu then accepted him as worthy to create. Remember, Brahma was being given the task to create all the universes. That was his task. So Vishnu then accepted him as worthy to create, and being satisfied with him, shook hands with him, smiling slightly. Vishnu then said, I am very much pleased with your tapasya. Right? Remember what is tapasya? That process of being able to raise one's consciousness, to uplift one's soul to a higher level. I am pleased with your tapasya and the desire for creation. I wish you good luck. You may ask from me any benediction that you desire. He's willing to give him anything that he desires. Know that the ultimate benediction is to see me and my abode. It was I who first ordered you to undergo tapasya when you were perplexed in your duty. Tapasya is my heart and soul. I create, maintain, and destroy the cosmos through tapasya. Brahma replied, Bhagavan refers to the Supreme Being, you are situated in every living entity's heart as the Supreme Director, and therefore you are aware of all endeavors by your superior intelligence. In spite of that, I am praying to you to kindly fulfill my desire. May I please be informed how, in spite of your transcendental form, you assume the mundane form. So when he comes into this world, right? Although you have no such form at all. O Master of all energies, please tell me how you manifest different energies for annihilation, maintenance, and generation of this universe. You play like a spider that covers itself by its own energy. In other words, the divine or God is present in the entire universe, but is covered with this illusion of matter, and of which we are so bewildered. Right? So he compares him like a spider that covers itself by its own energy. You have shaken hands with me, just as a friend does with a friend. I shall be engaged in the creation of different types of living entities and should be occupied in your service. I pray that all this may not give rise to pride, as if I were the supreme creator. So you see in here a deep humility in Brahma, which is what actually qualifies him to do what he's doing. Bhagavan Vishnu replied, knowledge about me is very confidential. It has to be realized in conjunction with devotion. May my eternal form, qualities, and activities be awakened within you by my causeless mercy. I was existing before the creation when there was nothing but myself. That which you see now is also me, and after annihilation what remains will also be me. Whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it to be my illusory energy, Maya, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. The universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. The universal elements enter into the cosmos, but at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I am outside of everything. Just follow this conclusion by fixed concentration of mind, and no pride will disturb you. Having said this, Vishnu disappeared. Brahma, with folded hands, began to recreate the universe. Recreate because every day of Brahma, the universe is destroyed at the night, and every day he recreates it, all the universes. That goes on for 100 of his years. So he began to recreate the universe filled with living entities as it was previously, desiring the welfare of everyone. Thereafter, Brahma narrated this Srimad Bhagavatam to his son Narad, the greatest of all sages and devotees. Narad instructed it to Vyas as he meditated on the banks of the Saraswati river. And now we get to hear of it. So that is the end of today's Bhagavatam. I would love to hear from all of you. Let me switch over so that we can engage in conversation. And let's invite whoever would like to ask any questions. If you've got something on your mind, I would love to hear from you. If you've written down something in the chat, let me take a look. Does anyone have any questions? Would you like to ask anything? I know it's been kind of long. We got a little delayed in our start. And so everything kind of went a little late, but I'm glad you've all been here and been so attentively listening. I'm so grateful to all of you that have been attending here regularly. Cindy has asked a question. She asks, is consciousness a collection of information that remains within the soul? Let's put it out here so you can all read it. Oh, sorry. Is consciousness a collection of information that remains within the soul or stored in a place such as the Akashic records? When we shed the ego and eventually ascend into higher worlds or divine realms, does consciousness transform as part of us or disappear? All right, Cindy, that's a wonderful question there. All right, so let's take the first part of it. Is consciousness a collection of information that remains within the soul or stored in a place such as the Akashic records? See, information is what is gathered by the subtle body. And this information that you're talking of in the Akashic records may possibly be connected with the subtle body. There is the gross body, the physical body, and then there is the subtle body. The subtle body consists of mind, intelligence, and ego. This subtle body is what goes with us life after life. That is why we can remember our previous lifetimes. That information may also be recorded somewhere in the cloud, which I think people call the Akashic record. So there is maybe a similarity to that concept as well. However, that is not the soul. That is not consciousness. Consciousness is pure. It has nothing to do with this physical reality. Then you write, when we shed the ego and eventually ascend into the higher worlds or divine realms, does consciousness transform as part of us or disappear? So as long as we're in the material world, in the physical world, as long as there is a physical form that you take, whether that is in some heavenly planet or some lower planet, or whether it's on the earth, no matter what kind of form, as long as that form is subject to birth, to death, to old age, to disease, then it is a physical form. And if it is a physical form, then we need to know that it will not be eternal. It is part of this world. And wherever you go in this creation, the subtle body goes with you. So you will always have that remembrance. And once you ascend once you actually get liberated, you get moksha, you get released from the physical world, then at that point what happens is you are no longer in any kind of physical body. And when you no longer take a physical form, you're no longer a part of the cycle of birth and death. At that point, there is no subtle body either. They're both dropped off. Then you ascend into pure consciousness. Now, in pure consciousness, there are two possibilities. The first of those possibilities is the merging into the light, or the Brahma Jyoti as it is called, the divine light. Once you merge into that, there is no more you. There is the complete annihilation of the identity of the self. That is one possibility. It is not the only possibility. Here we had Brahma having visions of Vaikuntha, the spiritual planets that exist within the light. Within those planets, as it was describing the people or the beings that live there, those are beings who have non-physical forms, forms that are not subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. Therefore, they are not perishable. They are eternal forms. And within each of those Vaikuntha planets are different incarnations of Vishnu or the divine or God. There are different avatars in each of those planets. So there is no disappearing here. There is a life that is spent in relationship with God. The highest of those Vaikuntha planets is called Golok Vrindavan. That is the planet of Krishna himself, the supreme being of all. And that supreme being then engages in his Leela and his pastimes there, along with Radha his beloved. And that Leela is what we talked about last time when we talked about the different kinds of relationships we can have with God. Here in Golok Vrindavan, there is no greater and smaller. In the Vaikuntha planets, God is great. He's looked up to, he is worshipped. But in the Golok Vrindavan planet, that is the place of supreme love. And in love, no one is higher or lower. No one is God and no one is soul. We are all at the same level. At the same time, we also know who is the source being or God or Krishna. Everyone's in love with him and engages in wonderful pastimes and Leela with him. I hope that answers your question. Are there any other questions? Would anybody like to come on and ask something? All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been an honor having you. Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna, Radhe Radhe. I look forward to seeing you again next week for another wonderful and exciting chapters of the Bhagavatam. Take care and have a very wonderful night.